Heat radiation is all around us. This heat can be used as a kind of invisible light, infrared light. With special equipment, it can be seen, photographed, and measured. I'm Mike Nelson. My companions and I were testing new detecting equipment that could make it possible to apply these principles underwater. That's why I was here, in the Indian Ocean, hunting this kind of invisible light. I was working with one of the most brilliant scientists in the field. He was a young, Oxford-educated East Indian. His name was Dr. Jamal Singh. With us was Swedish-born Risa Helvig. Risa was decorative, but that wasn't all. She was also an apprenticed scientist and secretary of the International Oceanographers Institute. The Institute was sponsoring the doctor's work. We were only one of 6 units doing experimental work on new kinds of underwater equipment. The others, like us, were working from scientific vessels strung out along the coastline at various points. We would meet later at a designated spot to compare notes. Found a lot of valuable answers for our research. Then we found something that we weren't looking for. Dr. Singh dropped his detector. We were startled by what happened. The device was already being sucked down into the bottom. We needed that detector, but I knew that it would be dangerous to try and get it out. I motioned to Singh to hold onto my foot, while I moved in cautiously. It was a job pulling the detector out. The bottom was exerting a strong suction on it. What we had discovered was a surprise to us, but not new to science. It was soft ocean bottom, loose sediment, filled into depressions in the ocean floor. I looked back and saw that the depression had already filled in. I felt a distinct chill. It wasn't from the water.
You drink or something?
Rather a nasty experience down there.
Nasty? That's the understatement of the year, Dr. Singh. It gives me chills just thinking about it.
Yeah. Me too. I must say, Doctor, I didn't expect to find a condition like that down there.
We haven't run across it very often in these waters.
Oh, if I never run across it again, it'll be all right with me.
Yeah, but you want to watch out for it, though. Especially when there's not much water movement down below, on the bottom.
Is that what makes the bottom so soft?
Yeah.
Yes. You see, There are layers and layers of soft sediments, sand, silt, or clay, filled into pockets in the ocean floors. The condition can become most dangerous.
Just look at that goo, huh? If we're to continue our work here, it's going to be like hanging onto a tiger by a tail.
Maybe we should discontinue our work here. I mean, move on to another area.
I'm afraid that's something you'll have to decide, Mike. Personally, I'd prefer to continue working here. We've invested a lot of valuable time in studying the prevailing conditions here and adjusting the equipment to them.
Yeah, I know we have. And if we move on, well, we're going to have to start all over again.
Right.
We'll keep on here. But on one condition. Racer, you're going to have to remain aboard from now on.
Of course, I'll do whatever you wish in this matter, Mike. But...
Oh, the doctor will be all right. He's a good diver. He's careful. Not that you're not, but,
But I'm a woman.
That's for sure. No, it's just that I'm afraid, Risa, that you might get bogged down and you wouldn't have the strength to free yourself.
Well, in that case, I'll just have to work out with barbells every day from now on and work up muscles like Atlas. You'll see.
Well, before you do that, you'd better get to work right here. We've got to start setting up the equipment if we're going to run medium-range tests on infrared detection today.
Yeah, daylight's going. We've got to take advantage of all the time we possibly can. Risa, you want to get Oh, you can work on that, all right, fine.
With the equipment above water set up on the deck of the boat, I made sure that everything was in order below water. I'd already attached a sensitive infrared pickup to the hull. The cable would connect this detector with the analyzing and computing equipment on board. I signaled to Risa to check the equipment. On deck, Risa could operate the pickup on a directional rotor that accurately indicated compass bearings. After all the equipment above board and below had been checked out, I would swim out with cables from the boat to meet the doctor and couple it with cables from the station at a halfway point between the station and the boat. Dr. Singh had set off underwater with cables, couplings, and equipment to set up the underwater station for our medium-range tests. The station would produce infrared radiation by which we could test our detectors. Dr. Singh was carrying a heavy load of steel-clad cable. He checked his compass to keep moving in the right direction. He forgot that the mass of cable could throw a compass off completely. He was already moving steadily in the wrong direction.
Take a look at that.
Oh, Mike, it works.
Yeah, it sure does. Of course, this is very close range. The real test is how accurately we can continue to detect the radiations. And from how far.
But it's a beginning. Now I know how Newton felt.
Yeah, but he only had an apple to keep his eyes on. You got all this equipment to watch out for. We expect you to take care of the situation, too.
Oh, don't worry about me. I got an easy job. It's you and Dr. Singh I'm concerned about.
Hold that for me for a second, will you? Okay, thanks.
I swam down with the cables. We had agreed to meet at a certain time, and to make it, I'd have to work fast. I arrived at the place where I was supposed to meet Dr. Singh. The doctor wasn't there. It could have taken longer than planned to set up the underwater station. Still, I was worried. If I could have seen Singh at that moment, I would have been even more worried, because he was lost. His deviated compass was rapidly leading him farther and farther from our zone of operations. I checked the time and my bearings. I started looking for him, but I didn't know exactly where he was going to set up the underwater station. Dr. Singh had been careful, but not careful enough. In his haste and confusion, he had already stumbled into a treacherous bog of soft sediment. The heavy cables were wrapped around him, and he couldn't get rid of them. The suction was beginning to pull him slowly but surely downward. I couldn't find any sign of the station or the doctor. I knew that somehow, some way, he had gotten lost. When I started to search for Dr. Singh, I had let go of the cables. I knew that when Risa saw the slack, she would be worried. But I couldn't stop to think too long about Risa then. I had to find the doctor. Ordinarily, if he got lost, he could just surface. But this area was filled with soft floor. The slightest touch broke the crust, and with the weight Singh was carrying, he could really get in trouble. He managed to reach one of his flares and get it out of the muck. He ignited it, but it was a dud. Despite anything that he could do, he was sinking deeper and deeper each minute. He knew that he'd soon be finished. Looking for anything lost underwater in the ocean is never easy, especially in an area where the sediment on the bottom is dangerously soft. I had wasted enough time looking for Dr. Singh. I decided to get back to the boat. By the time I got back to the boat, Risa Helvig had already put in a call for help to the other research vessels in the area and for planes to scan the surface. But Risa wasn't fooling herself.
Did you see any trace of him?
Nope. I was in hopes he was here.
I did everything you told me. I notified the rest of the expedition. But by the time they get here, it'll be too late, won't it?
Unless he's on the surface. And if he's not... Where are the binoculars?
Up there.
I don't see any bubbles. It's too big an area to set up a search pattern underwater, that's for sure. We never get to him in time.
What are we going to do, Mike?
He's going to be out of air, I'm sure of that. We got all that equipment. Let's use it.
Mike, look.
Only a few minutes later, we got a picture on the scope that looked like a man swimming.
Figure out the bearing and give it to me. Right there.
Good luck.
I didn't find the doctor. What I did find didn't help matters any. The detector had picked up a shark, a white tip, one of the kinds called man-eaters. If something had happened to the doctor, if he had hurt himself, it could attract every shark in the neighborhood for miles around. We got another signal. This would be it. But it wasn't. What the detector had picked up was a strong updraft of a warm current, stirring up a cloud of silt from the bottom. And I was wasting precious time. The very weak signal we got turned out to be coming from a large boiler, part of the wreckage of a ship. The corrosion process must have been radiating a very small amount of heat. I was glad our equipment was so sensitive, but it still wasn't finding Dr. Singh. I knew that he had taken along a couple of flares for the tests. As I headed back to the boat, I kept hoping that Singh had used one of them and that Risa had picked it up on the detector. I had to find Dr. Singh within the next 10 minutes. After that, when and if I found him, about the only thing that I'd be able to do for him would be to bury him. As close as I could figure, he had less than 10 minutes of air left in his tanks.
Hurry up. Come here. I've got something. What does that look like to you?
Heat radiation from a flare.
That's what I thought.
Quickest way to get there is by boat.
I knew the race was close, but just how close, I wouldn't know until later. A minute later, I was in the exact spot indicated by the bearings in the finder. I had an extra air tank and regulator with me. The infrared detector had worked. There was Dr. Singh, waving a flare. I wasn't any too soon. The flare burned out as I approached. I gave him air from the extra tank. Still had to get him out, and without getting caught myself, I signaled him to be patient. The board didn't help. I realized that manpower wouldn't do the job, but we couldn't wait for heavy equipment. The boat might do it. The cable, which was weighing him down now, could be of use. If I could attach it to the stern, I figured that I could get him out. The cable was in place. At a signal from me, Risa put the boat in motion. In a few minutes, Dr. Singh was safely on board.
Hey, let me take your weight down off. Take your track off, boy. Get him on that chair. Ah, you're gonna be all right, Doc. Yeah. How you feeling now, huh?
I feel wonderful.
Wonderful.
What do you mean?
Yes, wonderful. The equipment works.
Hi, I'm Lloyd Bridges, inviting you to join us for another action-packed story of underwater adventure 1 week from today.
Miniaturization is one of the great strides being made these days in every form of electronic equipment. That's why I found myself in deep water off the California coast testing a new, compact, self-powered, self-contained underwater radar unit. Something was happening to this radar screen, but there was nothing wrong with the unit. It was being jammed by something in the area, as efficiently as we jammed enemy radar during hostilities with strips of metal foil. At least that's the way it looked to me. Before I made up my mind, though, I decided that I better check it out against a full-size radar unit, which had been installed on my boat topside. Same funny reaction up here. Something in the field was really raising electronic cane. I wondered if the big coastal scanning units were getting the same crazy pattern on their screens. I decided that I'd better report what I discovered.
Coast Guard radio, WM2050, over. Coast Guard radio, WM2050, over.
There's one advantage to being a member of the Coast Guard Auxiliary. You know who to call, and you know that they'll be there on the double. As the cutter swept in, I recognized an old buddy of mine, Lieutenant Bob Camp.
Come on aboard, Bob. I want to show you something. Please.
Don't tell me you need help, Mike.
Yeah, hey, why don't you take a look at this, huh?
This it here? Looks all right to me, Mike.
What? It's all right now. A few minutes ago, that screen was a mess of scrambled eggs. You couldn't have identified anything.
Mike, aren't you over-dramatizing this just a little? We're not at war.
Isn't that why we have things like coastal warning setups? So that if anybody gets a bright idea to jump us, we won't be asleep?
Well, yes, that's very true, but there are also navigational aids. Come on, Mike.
Well, I'm not kidding. This could be something important.
Michael, if something did happen to cause this, what did you call it?
Blind spot, that's what it was. As far as the radar eye was concerned, it was blind.
All right, blind spot. Now, if this happened, don't you think the coastal scanning units would have picked it up? Don't you think they know what they're doing?
Sure, that's why I called you. I want to check, find out if the same thing was happening to them. That's why I anchored here. Mark our position. Look, I've been checking this underwater radar up and down the coast through all kinds of weather. I never had a reaction like that before.
All right. I'll make a report of it, but don't worry too much about it, all right?
Well, I don't see why I should. You're certainly not.
Well, also don't. I'll make a report to Commander Adams. But in the meantime, just forget about it. All right?
Bob Camp had really given me a brush off, no doubt about it. And what he'd also done was convince me that something big was cooking on this radar deal, especially when he'd mentioned Barney Adams' name. Lieutenant Commander Adams was the intelligence officer for the sector. I decided that I'd go see Barney myself. I waited outside while the yeoman on duty announced me.
Commander Adams is not going to be able to see you right now, Mr. Nelson.
Well, how long do you think it'll be, do you know?
I'm sorry, sir. I don't think you understand. He won't be able to see you at all.
Did you tell the commander it was important?
Yes, sir. I gave him your message.
He still wouldn't see me?
I'm sorry, sir.
You know Lieutenant Camp? Bob Camp?
Yes, sir.
Is he in there? Is Lieutenant Camp in there?
You'll have to excuse me, Mr. Nelson. I have an awful lot of work to do.
My first impulse was to be angry. And then I realized that there had to be a reason for the odd behavior of my Coast Guard friends. I didn't know what the reason could be, but I was just burned enough and stubborn enough to take another look. So I headed back to sea, to the same area where my radar set had gone wild. I searched carefully underwater, but there was no disturbance now. The set was functioning absolutely normally. I couldn't help feeling a little frustrated, knowing that I had bumped into something important and not being sure what it was. But the blind spot was gone, and without more information, it looked like all I could do was forget the incident. I had resigned myself to forgetting it till I surfaced, where I was hailed by a familiar figure on my boat. Bob Camp was dressed in civvies, but I was sure that he wasn't out here for fun.
Been looking for your blind spots again?
Uh-huh.
You've done it quite a while. Any luck?
No.
I understand you gave our yeoman a pretty hard time.
He's a good man. You told me the commander wouldn't see me, and he made sure that he didn't. He wouldn't even tell me if you were in there with him.
I was, you know.
Yes, I know. That was quite an act he put on. You, too.
Well, I'm sorry, but it was necessary.
That's what I finally figured out. Well, you want me to file a report now?
No. As of now, you're working for Commander Adams.
Oh, I am, huh?
So let's get this thing started and head for the Coast Guard dock.
Okay.
I headed in with Camp. On the way, he let me in on a couple of facts. The blind spot that I'd encountered was no accident. It was a man-made phenomenon. And if the nature of the jammer was not discovered immediately, there would be a hole in our coastal defenses any time that an enemy chose to use it. But the big facts came from Camp's boss, who had stalled me off before, Barney Adams.
Just what does it accomplish, jamming a small radar section like this?
I'll tell you what it accomplishes. It creates devastating navigational problems. And it opens this country up like a big ripe plum.
Why? We've got other warning devices.
We do, but we're testing and improving our systems constantly. We try every trick we can think of. One of our tricks was to fly a jet plane at treetop level, undetected by radar. Now, this is the curvature of the Earth. Here's your radar beam. Now, this is the flight of the jet.
Uh-huh. So anything below this radar beam is undetected, huh?
That's right. Man-made obstructions make it even worse. You see, inland radar doesn't come all the way down to the ground. You understand that?
Yeah, sure. But what I don't understand is what all this has to do with that blind spot that I ran into.
It has everything to do with it. Coastal radar can come all the way down to the water level.
Huh?
A plane that got by the coastal sweep might stay at a low altitude and never be detected inland.
Coastal radar is plenty crucial.
Well, there's more to it than that. The coastal radar warning system is sectionalized. The jamming attempts on record have all taken place in our area. And 2 previous blind spots have been reported. Yours was the 3rd.
Oh, so that's why you were so mysterious about this, huh?
I tried to be. This 3rd one has given the Coastal Defense Command some idea of pattern. What we have to do now is to get enough information to set a possible date, time, and place of the next attempt. Now, I'm in touch with Naval Intelligence, the Air Force Early Warning Squadron, and the Central Intelligence Agency. Now, the first recorded jamming was circular, between 2 of our sections.
That's right over here, huh?
That's right. The second was better placed, but it missed covering the depth of the section.
Right in here.
Yeah. In this last one, they evidently modified their equipment because their signal extended from the radar limit seaward almost to the coast.
So you figure the next one could do it, huh?
That's right. And then they fold their tents and steal away with enough information to penetrate our warning system anytime they choose. I've been over this thing from every angle. It's all here in the chart, but I just can't find a pattern.
So what do you want me to do?
Record these positions and see if you can find some sort of relationship that will let us predict the next attempt.
Oh, wait a minute. If you can't figure it out and all the boys in Washington can't figure it out, how do you expect me to figure it out?
I don't, but try. What I want you to do, and for this you're qualified, is to investigate some underwater locations for me.
Ah, now you're in my territory. What do I look for?
That's a good question. First, there has to be some apparatus. Second, it has to be underwater, because we've got this coastline covered on the surface like a dense fog. Find me some jamming machinery.
I took Barney's cue. I began an underwater search. The places that he had suggested were all rough, rocky areas. Good places for hiding, bad places for searching. The whole area had been fine-combed electronically, but nothing had been found. It's an awfully big ocean, full of caves, rock formations, and forests of seaweed. I began feeling that this business was a waste of time. I used up 2 tanks of air and a lot of patience and found nothing. I hoped Barney was doing better from his angle. As it turned out, I didn't have to wait long for that answer. Barney was aboard the boat when I surfaced.
What are you doing here?
Oh, I had to come. I got something important to tell you.
Oh? About this radar thing?
That's right. We got some information that whoever is jamming the radar is definitely based in this section. The coast is covered with men from the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy.
Yeah? Is that important, huh?
That's right. We figure this next attempt will give them all the information they need. We've got to stop that, Mike.
Got an idea how?
Well, we've got to make some sense from this jamming pattern. Every time I think I have a logical pattern mapped out, it vanishes. We've got to have more information, and that's where you come in.
Well, I'll be glad to help in any way I can. You know that.
Well, you know a lot of people up and down this coast. I want you to talk to them. Fishermen, salvage operators, hack skippers, anybody that might have a radar set.
Oh, I see. You want me to find out if anybody's run into this sort of thing and not reported it, huh?
That's right. And Mike, if we miss, we may be in for a lot of trouble.
And we better not miss.
I started asking questions at the most logical place. I got no useful answers. I went direct to fishermen. Modern fishermen carry radar equipment, but they might not pay attention to an infrequent display of electronic scrambled eggs on their screens. I asked a lot of questions, and when one man couldn't tell me anything, I asked him about his friends. From all of them, I got a great big negative no. Finally, I got a break. A fisherman named Tony Luciana had encountered a blind spot that no one else had recorded. Tony was voluble and eager to tell me all about it. So eager that at first I couldn't quite believe him.
You sure about that date now, Tony? It's very important.
Sure, I'm sure. Oh, let me tell you, on that day, I ran into the biggest school of albacore you ever saw. I know it's the right date.
Oh, that's great. Now, can you give me the approximate time and location?
Prox, I give you exact time, latitude, longitude. There was a big school of albacore. I want to make sure that I go back to the same place. And I don't want to make no mistake, so I put it all in the log.
Oh, that's
you want to see?
Yeah, I sure would.
All right, come and show you.
Tony's information was the missing piece. Without it, the pattern made no logical sense. And with it, it was possible to predict the time and the place of the next attempt at jamming. I worked it all out. Then I rechecked the figures. Based on the jamming that Barney Adams had recorded, plus the one Tony had now supplied, it came out like this. The next attempt would be made today, sometime while the tide was at full flood. My tide tables put it closer. Flood tide would last from 2:18 to 2:50. That gave me 20 minutes to find a human needle in a saltwater haystack. I found the area and prepared to go underwater. I had no idea what I'd find. I knew only that there was no time to wonder if my theory was right. I had to get in there and find out. I began my dive as close as possible to the spot that I'd calculated for the next disturbance. If my figures were right, I'd find myself in the middle of the blind spot. I began to place a buoy to mark the center of a search pattern. Then I realized that if enemy divers were here, my life might depend on seeing them before they saw me. I'd have to use underwater landmarks for reference. tide was now at full flood, but nothing was happening. I continued to search, knowing my radar set would give me instant notice of the jammer in operation. Some distance away, where I couldn't see him, a diver emerged from the rocks, carrying a curious electronic gadget. It was the jammer, all right, and the diver. He was preparing to turn it on for his last test of our defense system. The device was so powerful that electronic currents set up by it could be deadly at close range. It was operated by remote control. As the jammer warmed up, the electrical field induced around it caused electrolysis of the water. Suddenly, I was getting a blind spot on the scope. It was a tremendous signal interference, more powerful than my first encounter with it. I knew that I must be close to the source. By turning the scope, I found the strongest disturbance when I faced north. I headed straight in that direction. The disturbance was increasing. I knew I had it now. In my hurry, I hadn't been cautious enough. I was spotted first. If I hadn't used the back of my hand, the electrical shock would have killed me. But I was marked for death another way now. The spear missed, but the diver plunged for me. When his spear gun hit the jamming device, he took the full force of the electrical output. I didn't know if he was dead or not. I moved up with him as fast as I could. When we surfaced, my prisoner was still alive, but I didn't know for how long. Then I saw that beautiful Coast Guard cutter coming in. The jammer had been on long enough this time for them to get a fix, and a good thing it was, for me.
Get him below. See if you can revive him.
He had a good jolt from that jammer down there. It's no fun. I had a taste of it myself.
We have to bring him out of it. He has some questions to answer. You did a fine job, Mike.
All I did was apply your theory. Once I had the additional information from that fisherman, it was a cinch.
It's never a cinch when you're 50 feet down with a man who's trying to kill you.
I hate to break this up, but this radar screen looks like a plate of hamburger. And that thing is still jamming up the signal.
Mike.
How'd you hate people to go off and leave things running? Hello there. I'm Lloyd Bridges. You know, 3/5 of the world is covered by the sea. And how little most of us know about that underwater world. Go below with us again next week, huh? For another thrilling adventure in Sea Hunt.